And then the second part of the command is to close the door. So you collect and close. That's what I want you to do. Collect the empty jars and then close the door. This is a private time between you and God. Now imagine for a second how the sons are feeling. Mom, I know you make delicious strawberry jam. But is now the time to get the head start on collecting the jars? Like, shouldn't we be doing something productive here? I know that there's a purpose here, but what are you doing? Mom, we're about to be sold into slavery here. Maybe we shouldn't be collecting jars. Collect them. Close the door. If this is a private time, I love this. This is a private time between her sons, and her God. This is a private time. And I think Jesus in the book of Matthew, as he's giving the Sermon on the Mount, gives us an example of the importance of a private time. And in Matthew chapter 6, verse 5, he's giving the Sermon on the Mount. I'm going to read what he says here. I'm taking it from the Message Bible, so if it's different than what you've heard, this is why. It's from the Message Bible, and it says this: "And when you come before God, don't turn that into a theatrical production. All these people that do that make a regular show of their prayers, hoping for stardom. Do you really think God sits in box seats? Here's what I want you to do. Find a quiet, secluded place so you won't be tempted to role play before God. Just be there as simply and honestly as you can manage. And soon the focus will shift from you to God. This is your Father you're dealing with, and He knows better than you what you need. With a God loving you like this, you can pray simply, Our Father in heaven, reveal who you are. Set the world right. Do what's best, as above and below. Keep us alive with 3 square meals. Keep us forgiven with you and forgiving others. Keep us safe from ourselves and the devil. God, you're in charge. And God, you can do anything you want. You are ablaze in beauty. Yes, yes, yes." I love that translation there. I love that version of Our Father art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. This is just a different take on it, but the importance, the message is still there. It's important to get quiet sometimes with you and God. And thousands of years before this, Elisha knew the importance of getting quiet with him and God, with her and God, with her sons and God. Don't stand on the street corners and pray. Don't jump up and down and draw attention to yourself. Go into your house, close the door. This is a time for you and God. I find that interesting. So we've seen the challenge. We've seen the challenge of the death, the debt, and the discouragement. We've seen the command, which is to collect nothing. Go and collect nothing. And then close the door behind you and your sons. Now here's the commitment. Here's the commitment. Go big or go home. Elisha doesn't say, oh, and just collect 5 or 10. That's all you're going to need here. He says, collect as many as you can. Go to everybody you know and collect these. Get as many as you can, because I know a God bigger than anybody else. And watch out. So the challenge, the command, and here's the commitment. Get as many as you can. Go big or go home. There's a guy by the name of Gary Ingrid, and he wrote a commentary on the book, all the books of the Bible, and he wrote one on 2 Kings, and he says this. He says, Elisha could do nothing for the woman legally because the creditor was within his rights to take those 2 boys as his slaves. He could, however, provide an alternative solution. Discovering that the widow's only resource was a little jar of oil, he instructed her to borrow as many as possible because oil was a very important commodity for cooking and for light. For cooking and for light. He needed, hear me on this, Elisha needed this widow to be fully committed to this plan. Otherwise, it wasn't going to work. I think the widow felt. Hi, I was wondering if I could borrow an empty jar. For what? Just trying a little experiment. I'd love to let you know what it is, but I don't really know if it's going to work. But I'll let you know if it does. Thanks for the jar. Like, she has no guarantee. Friends, she has no guarantee that this is going to work. What is she thinking that she's going to do with all this oil? Have a giant slip and slide in the backyard? Like, what is she thinking she's going to do with this oil? She doesn't know. Because verse 7 tells us she went to Elisha, and we're going to get there in a minute, but she went to Elisha and said, okay, I'm done. Now what? She didn't know. By closing the door, this is about a trust in God that she had never, ever seen before. Gary Ingrid went on to say this. He said, this act was clearly a test in faith, both in asking for a large number of jars when her own supply of oil was so small, and in asking for such a large number of jars, and in acting in the absence of Elisha. He wasn't there. Did you catch that when we read that? He wasn't there. She only has a little bit of oil. And Elisha's not even going to show up. Go big or go home. Be committed. That's the challenge. That's the command, and that's the commitment. To be fully committed. Go big or go home. We live in a day and age where we can get what we want. We live in a day and age where if we want something, we don't have the money, we charge it. Put it on credit. I'll pay it off later. She couldn't do this. She couldn't put her son's lives on credit. She needed this to work. When was the last time that you fully trusted God? There was another young man in search of God, and so he found a wise old sage. He found this wise old man, and he said, Can you show me how to find God? Teach me how to find God. And so this wise old sage took him by the shoulder, and they walked out, and they found a little stream, and they began to walk down the embankment along the shore, and they walked out into the stream. Arms on his shoulder, and they begin to wade out, and the water began to rise and rise and rise until it was about at their shoulders. And the wise old teacher grabbed him by the neck and dunked him underneath the water. And he just held him there. And the young man at the first was like, okay, maybe this is how I find God, and didn't really do anything. And after about 30 or 40 seconds, he began to panic. He began to flail a little bit in desperation. And 3 or 4 more seconds, and he probably would have drowned on the mat. And the old man yanked him up, put his arm around his shoulder, and walked him back to shore. And the young man kind of sputtering, what did almost drowning me have to do with finding God? The wise old sage said, what did you want when you were drowning more than anything? Well, air, of course. The teacher said, when you want God as much as you wanted that air, then you'll find him. And you may ask, what does that have to do with widow's oil? That widow wanted God in this moment more than anything else. What challenges are you facing in your life that you need